Good evening, everyone. I am a storyteller, and I am here to help you fall asleep with true horror stories. So before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. I would love to know where you are from and what time you are watching this, so leave me a comment when you are ready. Sit back and relax. I never thought a normal camping trip would turn into such a nightmare. It was a late autumn afternoon, around the beginning of October. Jake and I, my best friends since college, decided to take advantage of the weekend to pack a tent and go up to the Rocky Mountains to escape the noisy city. The sky was clear that day. The air was just cold enough to be comfortable. The mountain scenery was filled with the yellow color of maple leaves, so quiet and poetic that it made people mistakenly think that nothing in the world could disturb that peace. We set up our tent near a small stream, lit a fire, and prepared to grill meat. As night fell, the space was silent except for the crackling of firewood and the gurgling of water. I remember Jake was still telling a silly joke when that scream rang out. A woman's scream, echoing from somewhere deep in the forest. At first it was just a scream, but then it turned into a cry, a plea. It was unmistakably the sound of utter despair. Jake looked at me, his face drained of color. We both froze, daring to listen, hoping it was some kind of joke. Scream lasted for nearly a minute before abruptly stopping, leaving a dead silence that sent chills down my spine. I had never heard a sound that made my heart sink so much. Without saying anything, Jake and I quietly put out the fire, frantically packing our things into the Jeep. My hands shook as I dialed 911. The signal was so intermittent it was taunting. I only had time to mumble a few words about the scream before the signal dropped. We drove slowly down the trail that led to the highway. My mind was spinning, my heart pounding against my chest. And then, on the last turn before the main road, the headlights of the car swept over a blurry figure on the side of the road. It was a man, tall and thin, wearing a dark coat. He was dragging a huge, heavy bag. Jake and I looked at each other, a bad feeling filling us. But before we could react, from afar, police lights suddenly flashed. The man dropped the bag, turned around, and ran back into the woods, disappearing into the darkness. The police asked us to stop. They quickly checked the bag left on the side of the road. I heard an officer exclaim and quickly covered his eyes, signaling us to turn away. But in just a moment of glancing, I managed to see part of a human body, the body of a woman wrapped in a tarp. My throat was dry and bitter. Jake stood motionless, his face as white as a sheet of paper. We were held for questioning for several hours, until it was almost dawn. The police only said that the victim was a woman about 34 years old and said nothing more. They didn't say whether they had caught the man or not, only that we should not leave the area for the next few days. Every night since then, I have dreamed of that scream. It was still the same broken, choked sound in the quiet of the mountains and forests. And I wonder if we had left camp a few minutes later that day, would the man have been dragging another bag? I was about 10 years old. My school organized a camping trip that lasted a few days in a campsite in the middle of the woods, far away, with no cell phone reception or anything but the quiet nature. I stayed with a few close friends in a dorm where, being kids, we got into all sorts of mischief, and as usual, the ghosts were soon brought up. The first night, after all the outdoor activities were over, we all went back to our rooms. The lights were off except for the dim light from the nightlight. Everyone was whispering, playing soul calling, and even saying random things like, "If there's a ghost here, let us know." No one thought it was anything serious, until I looked at the empty bed in the corner of the room, the bed that no one had slept in. In the dim light, I noticed a dent in the mattress, as if someone had just sat down, leaving a long depression down the edge of the bed. Before I could say anything, my friend, my roommate, suddenly rushed into the bathroom and locked the door. We heard him scream, his voice panicked. "Something just touched my thigh." We rushed to knock on the door, but the lock was stuck. The door wouldn't open. Then, for some reason, the lock fell to the floor. The doorknob was loose, as if it was about to come off. The air in the room was thick. The curtains were swaying slightly, even though there was no wind. When I looked into the steamy mirror in the bathroom, I clearly saw several tiny handprints imprinted on the mirror. My heart was pounding. All my friends were only 10, 11 years old. It couldn't be any of our handprint. We hardly slept that night. I remember feeling hot, as if I had a high fever, while the person lying next to me was shivering from the cold. The whole room was filled with a strange feeling. But the next day, despite trying to do everything normally, shooting archery, playing games, my friend and I still couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us. When we returned to our room at noon, we glanced in and saw the curtains were flapping back and forth by themselves, even though the room was empty and everyone was outside. We decided to sneak back into the room again, dragging a few curious friends along. When we closed the door, we immediately noticed strange dents on all the beds, as if someone or something had just lain down on each one. Before we could react, a scream came from the corner of the room, high-pitched, spine-chilling. Not daring to stay any longer, we all rushed out, joining the lunch crowd as if nothing had happened. But my heart was not at peace at all. On the last night, when everyone was gathered around the campfire, I quietly looked into the distance. And I swear, on the far bank of the river, under the flickering firelight, there was a figure standing motionless. As if staring at us, I thought I was seeing things, until the owner sat down to tell a ghost story. He said that someone had drowned near a lake not far away, the water from the lake flowing into the river right in front of us. When he pointed to the lake, it was the direction I had seen the figure. From that moment on, I swore to myself I would never go camping again. If you think wilderness camping is all about birdsong and cozy fires, then I'm sorry. My story might make you think again. It all started one summer night. My girlfriend Emma and I, being adventurous, decided to pick an unofficial spot, a clearing deep in the woods of the Appalachian Mountains. There were no signs, no ranger stations, and even Google Maps showed a blank cell phone reception. Forget it, it was intermittent, as if the forest itself decided who was allowed to communicate with the outside world. As the evening wore on, the twilight stretched across the towering trees, casting shadows on the ground like an eerie black carpet. The forest was eerily quiet, with no birds or insects. It felt like every living thing there was holding its breath. We pitched our tents, lit a fire, and ate, trying to enjoy the isolation. But as the night wore on, the air grew heavier. The wind whistled through the tall trees, making a sound like someone was whispering in an unknown language. Then it was exactly 2 a.m. I woke up, not knowing why. Everything was too quiet, except for a strange sound echoing in the distance. The whirring, intermittent sound of a machine. I strained my ears to hear the sound of a chainsaw. Emma jumped up too. She looked at me, her eyes filled with panic. Without saying anything, I knew she heard it too. The sound of a chainsaw echoed through the night air, mixed with fits of laughter, like someone had gone mad. The sound was not like a normal person, but distorted, echoing, lingering as if echoing from deep underground. Suddenly, I realized the sound of the saw was getting closer. And then, the silhouettes of 3 men appeared clearly on the thin wall of the tent. One of them was holding something long and swaying, most likely a saw. Their shadows swayed and wavered in the moonlight, like twisted figures. We held our breaths. Footsteps rustled close to the tent. One of them stopped, as if listening to every breath inside. I felt my heart break. Emma trembled, clutching my hand. Then, a burst of laughter came from behind the tent, so close that I thought the person was only a few centimeters away from the thin fabric. I knew that if we hesitated any longer, we would be too late. I signaled to Emma. We gently zipped up the tent and stepped out, trying not to make a sound. The wind blew through the forest, cold, but I felt nothing but terror. We ran, our boots crushing dry leaves, our hearts pounding. I felt like the footsteps behind me were still chasing me, the shadows flickering between the trees, the laughter mixed in the wind. Running to the car, I hurriedly opened the door, jumped in, locked the door, then started the engine and drove away. It wasn't until the dim street lights appeared that I dared to breathe normally. The next morning, stupidly, I still went back, only to find the cold, empty land, the tent gone, all the belongings, the backpack gone. But what made my spine shiver the most was on the ground. There were large tire tracks running around the location of our tent, as if someone had been lurking all night. I didn't know who they were or what their real purpose was. Was it a scare, a thief, or something even darker? From then on, Emma and I never dared to camp in unmarked places on the map again. In the middle of the night, sometimes the most dangerous thing is not a wild animal, but the people whose faces you can't see, but whose laughter echoes in the darkness. If you ever thought a camping trip in the wild was just for fun, always remember, there are places where not everyone is welcome, and there are things that are best left unexplained. If you like true horror stories like this, don't forget to leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next horror stories.